get swept again. Back-to-back series now. Sweeps. Ooh. They were first swept at home this past weekend. It was ugly. It was against the Mariners for the Vetter Cup. And then they took off and played in Toronto Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And it got really ugly here, Nika, on this road trip. They did show a little bit of fight yesterday, but they still lose 7-6 in extra innings.
But they did go to extra innings for the first time, I believe, this season.
I think they did maybe a couple times in April,
okay.
But
that doesn't count.
Don't. Who knows? But this is definitely the worst losing streak we've seen on the Padres since at least 2023. This is the worst losing streak in the Mike Shildt era. And it has been ugly, folks. If you look at the next slide, Nika, this is from Annie Heilbrunn. We've talked about her before. She says that the Padres have scored 3 runs over their last 45 innings. Per the team, the last time the Padres scored 3 or fewer runs across a 5-game span was May 22nd through the 26th, 1972. That's like 3 years into the existence of the Padres.
Wow. So they playing like it's 1960, 1970s.
1970s, yeah. This is like not counting the final game, obviously, because they scored 6 runs and you know, whether you want to argue that they are breaking out of it or not, we'll get to that in a second. But I just, from basically last Friday until Wednesday in those 5 games, it was 1 run, 1 run, 1 run, and then 0 and 0 in 5 games. That is absolutely pathetic. And yet the Padres remain 6 games over 500 today, and they are, as of today, a wild card team because of the 15-4 start that they had. You know, you can look at their record right now, 27-21, and do some easy math because we know they started 7-0. So you can take, since then, you can easily see that they're 20-21. So they're a game under 500 since starting 7-0. And I'm not making excuses for the Padres, but when you do start the way that they started, you give yourself a little bit of slack in a long season like this, you know, for a rough spot or two. Nevertheless, this is about as rough as you can get. So we need to turn this around really quickly if we're going to even salvage or save this season. The hot start be damned, Nika.
Yeah, I know. Remember what happened to the Tampa Bay Rays? They had a couple years ago.
Yeah.
They had a huge start.
They were one of the best teams in baseball. And then, you know, obviously things went to hell in a handbasket with Wander Franco later on that summer. But this was, they started to dwindle in the standings before that.
Okay.
And they never really recovered. Well, that stat that we just showed you wasn't even the worst stat that I found, Nika, because if you flip to the next one, it says Opta Stats. The 2025 Padres are the second team in Major League Baseball history to have a 5-game stretch where they did all of these following things. They scored 3 or fewer runs. They allowed 30 or more runs. They allowed 10 or more home runs. And committed 5 or more errors. I don't know about you, Nika, but that's a recipe for losing if I've ever heard one in baseball.
Yes, I agree with you 100%. And seeing them on the field, awful.
Body language has been terrible. To finish out this tweet, it says, the other team was the Padres themselves. From April 11th through the 16th, 1969, the first 5 losses in franchise history.
Wow.
I think it's funny that the Padres have not once, not twice, but now 3 times scored 3 or fewer runs in 5 games in their entire existence. That's awful, guys. So, yeah, not the best of weeks for the Friars, for the Friar faithful. Arguments abound on social media everywhere about what the problem is, how to fix it. This team's cooked. I've seen it all this week. And you know who I feel really bad for right now is our guy. You know, like, I'm not going to hide it. I'm a Mike Shildt fanboy.
Mm-hmm. You
And
mentioned that a few times.
to watch him have to go through this as a manager, and for everything that he's done to defend these guys and take the heat for them, and this is how they respond and repay him. Like, man, I hope they've gotten a tongue lashing at some point, Nika, over the last couple days, because this is absolutely pathetic baseball.
I agree.
End of story.
I agree 100%. And I know there's still early in the season, so there's time to turn things around, but you got to give the fandom something. Right now,
yeah,
give nothing.
I mean, I've seen people complaining that, we don't have enough slug, we don't have enough power, we're just a singles machine hitting team, and, like, we're only getting 2 or 3 singles an inning, and we're not keeping it going down the line. For what it's worth, for me, I just don't see our guys grinding out the at-bats like they were at the beginning of the season on a whole. And even that last year at the end of the season, it was like we worked pitchers, like 5 or 6 pitches in a bat. It wasn't an easy out. And eventually you would get that mistake pitch and drive it into a gap for a double. And there's your missing slug, by the way. Yeah. So I think a lot of this is connected. And I don't know if it's necessarily... I'm hesitant to say that there's anything wrong philosophically with the Padres and their approach to the game, because we've seen so much success here. We saw 93 wins under this same philosophy last year. We saw a 7-0 start to this season. We saw a 15-4 start to this season. So we know that this philosophy works. What we have not seen is execution. We have seen abysmal at bats with runners in scoring position, and
that's what's hurting the team.
Absolutely.
Because I noticed one thing: if there are runners in the scoring positions and the team doesn't score, the whole game goes to shit. It's like they check out after that.
Yeah, there's this thing in football where it's like, if the team is driving down the field and they're about to score, and then all of a sudden the other team intercepts it and returns it all the way for a touchdown, they call that a 14-point swing, because not only did you not get your 7 points, but the other team also got 7 points. And that's like, that's like a big swing. And I kind of feel like what you're describing right now is the same thing in baseball. Like, and you're so right. Every time they get runners on like 1st and 3rd, 1 out, or 2nd and 3rd, nobody, and then you don't score, you don't convert the run, you don't execute. And yet there is something defeatist about that too, because I don't want them to just get sacrifice flies. Like, the Padres work best when it's like they're running down the line, they're keeping it moving, 1st and 3rd, keep it going. Like, but I feel like they've stopped playing their brand of baseball. They have not been aggressive on the base paths. They haven't been, like, Fernando will take a walk, but he won't steal. Like, is he hurt? Is there something going on? Like,
that's a good point.
Is he protecting his shoulder from still the Oakland series earlier in the season? Like, I just feel like, it all starts there. And so even when he's just getting those walks, we gotta be aggressive on the base paths and get this team playing aggressive again. I don't mean to use the word twice in a sentence, but
you are right, because it is up to the superstars on that team to get the team going. It's not to the second hands, the B team, if you will.
Yeah,
it's the A team supposed to show the ropes, how it's
100%,
done.
And like, I want Fernando to become an MVP player, and part of being an MVP player is carrying your team when everyone else is down. And you got to rise above it.
Exactly.
And it's not easy. No one's saying that it's supposed to be easy, but that's the job if you want to be labeled the moniker MVP. So
exactly.
I want him to become an MVP. I want him to grow into that, but I can't force him to become that player. And he's had really bad at bats. His strikeouts have gone way up. His leg kick is back, and it's like,
what happened?
He seems to be overthinking this whole thing, and I really wish he would have stayed committed to the changes he made in the offseason.
And you can
instead of letting a couple bad days let it all go to waste, it seems like.
Right, and also you cannot expect Merrill to pick up everybody else's slack, because he's too young to be doing that.
Like Manny said, when he signed that contract, in the offseason, when Merrill signed his extension, Manny said he needs to still be working on becoming the best center fielder he can be, the best player he can be. And
it's on Manny, it's on Bogarts, it's on Tatis, it's all these players. They got to step up. They are the leaders of that team.
100%. And it all will get right. It will all fix itself over time. I'm confident in that. The Padres aren't going to lose the rest of their games all season long.
Oh.
You know, I just hope it doesn't take too much longer to break out of this, because then you're going to be back to square one, and that whole hot start that you got off to is going to be like wiped out and eliminated. And
it's slowly deteriorating in front of our eyes.
It is. So hopefully we see changes, and we see changes starting tonight. Let's hear from Mike Shildt after yesterday's loss.
All right.
And just about this 6-game losing streak. This was posted by 97.3, The Fan, San Diego. Let's hear from one of my favorites in the business, Mike Shildt, everybody.
A parse between, like, a loss is a loss.
Yeah, that's right.
But this is 6 straight.
It is.
And you haven't done that before.
That's right.
I guess it'd be different if you hadn't battled today. You're probably going to say that this is how you get out of it, is playing like this, having at bats like this. But like, how does this team, which was so good for 5 or 6, 7 weeks, get back to that?
Yeah, uncharted territory. I mean, nobody really here's experienced that, and I do believe. I've thought about the last couple days, and then of course today I felt good about us winning the game. But as you reflect back on where we're at, first of all, to your point, listen. Today is exactly how you get out of it. That's just how this works. You play our game, and today, we played some good defense. Toddy, a good play. Multiple good defensive plays. One cost us, but tough at bats. Guys had aggressive throwing strikes in the zone. They got hits. We didn't really. Not a lot was self-inflicted. That's how that happens. And what I was getting back to is, I really am confident that this is going to only make us stronger. There is no question about that. It will make us stronger. It doesn't feel great right now. Very soon it'll be a distant memory as we continue to get back to playing on the good side of the left-hand side of the win column. And listen, it's just going to make us stronger, and it'll make us closer.
Okay.
Well, we can hear it a little bit in his voice there. He sounds shaken a little bit. And I know he's doing his best to maintain the vision that he's outlaid for this team. And I mean, we're literally like 6 weeks away, or 6 weeks removed from, the hot start and Shildt ball becoming a thing, and this whole branding. And now here we are, where we almost see a man on his heels a little bit. Kind of, is he's lost a little bit for answers. It seems like he says we played good defense a couple times. He doesn't know what else to say.
Well, I think Mike Shildt is one of the guys that looks at things glass half full than empty. Always on the positive. So he's not going to throw any player under the bus. He's going to cover for them. Mm-hmm. We don't know if anybody's more injured than they're showing. None of that is being reported at the moment.
Yeah. You just wonder if there should be a little bit more accountability, or not throwing individual players under the bus, but just holding them accountable for everything that they want to have, change. Mm-hmm. Whenever you're going like this, you have to have changes, and it's a two-way street, because people need to be accepting of those changes. And
definitely, they have to be accepting, and they have to believe also that what Mike Shildt is selling, and they did believe it. And I don't know what happened.
I don't know what happened either, but this is one of the weirdest funks I've ever seen a team go through in a long time. Yeah. And I just, like I said before this, my heart kind of goes out to Mike Shildt. Here's a guy who we've talked about in the past, that the way that they came up through baseball, through the ranks, they've probably seen it all almost. Mm-hmm. And when you hear somebody that sounds like they don't have any answers for what's happening to this team right now, it's a little bit of a alarming situation, because
Maybe they just don't know. They cannot point to one thing. It all, to me, it looked like when Arise got hit, that's when this whole thing started. The whole train got derailed.
A little bit, yeah.
And since then Merrill got injured. He wasn't out there. It all kind of had a domino effect on the team, and they
I
haven't
agree,
picked up.
but they've been back for a while now.
I know, and they haven't been able to put the pieces back together.
It's not gelling back together, and like I think even when they were out, we were playing better. Like the support group, like the Iglesiases were stepping up, and we were still putting like I said, enough of those hits together every inning, like where it felt like we had 4 or 5 hits strung together in an inning, and that's when we did. The Padres do a lot of their damage isolated. They don't put up a lot of 1s and 2s throughout the course of the game and have 8 runs at the end of the game. They tend to put up like a big 4 spot or a 5 spot in an inning, and not really let themselves beat themselves. And that's what's been different, I think, about it, is they haven't been getting those hits, and then they in turn make mistakes and give it away to the other team on the field. And it's been a long time since we've talked about the give and take philosophy of Mike Shildt. He literally has this philosophy where it's like, take what the other team gives you and don't give anything away to the other team. And right now the opposite is happening.
Yeah,
the exact opposite is happening. So
I still believe in this team. I can't give up yet. It's too early.
I do too. I firmly believe that the Padres will make the playoffs, and if they do, anything can happen. They have enough pitching talent on their roster, if they stay healthy, to have enough playoff depth, and they have enough hitters on this team, and star players.
Yes.
I think they can do it.